Hey guys, it's Danconia. Welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Grand Finals Preview. So it's been an extended preview for these Grand Finals. We've taken a look at every team individually, but now we're going to actually take a look at this schedule. It is going to be incredibly interesting. We have got four teams, I should say, that have shown us some fantastic Overwatch in this season. Some teams have been more consistent than others, some teams have been right at the top, some teams have had their highs and their lows, but it is going to be incredibly interesting. The Grand Finals will take place in South Korea, which is going to be interesting for one thing because of the timings for a lot of us. It's going to be a little tough for us EUers and UNAers, but we're going to try and make it through, and there'll always be catch up and all that, and they are on slightly funny days as well, which is kind of odd, but hey, we're here, let's go with it. And this season has been a tough one. We are going to see Seoul Dynasty, San Francisco Shock, Philadelphia Fusion and Shanghai Dragons in this Final Four. And these teams have been great. They really, really have, especially during the playoffs. All of them have looked fantastic, with San Francisco Shock and Shanghai coming in as the top two teams from the top team from each region, as Shanghai and Seoul come over from the APAC region and San Francisco and Philadelphia come over from the North American region. This is going to be unique for the entire season because this is going to be the first time we're going to see intercontinental matches and the only time we're going to see intercontinental matches. So it's a moment to savor, isn't it? And it's going to be really cool. Now, the format here is we are going to see double elimination bracket. So if you lose in the first round, you're not entirely out. So don't completely lose faith. All of the matches will be first to 3 maps, apart from the Grand Finals, which is, as always, first to 4 maps. So we could have something crazy like a 4-3, if not more, which would be... oh, that would be some Overwatch, wouldn't it now? So, looking at these teams, we've done that now, and now it's time to perhaps try and predict this entire bracket, try and see where we think things are going to fall, and how things are going to work out. Now, these teams, I think this is going to be a really close playoffs, and I really hope it's going to be a close playoffs as well. And San Francisco and Philadelphia, obviously moving over to Korea, they've had to self-isolate, they've had to have some Papega setups while practicing and stuff like that. So it hasn't been the easiest for them. Shanghai and Seoul, already being in the region, they haven't had too much of an issue. And with this, I think this gives Shanghai and Seoul a little bit more proper prep time, but it should be okay. It should be okay. Now, the first match will be at 12 PM BST on Thursday, October the 8th. Yes, Thursday. I don't know why. I think that is about 7 AM NA in some places, which is not great, is it? Let's be honest. It's a rough one for you guys, but some people may be able to catch this match before they go to work or school in NA, so that's obviously great. If you're in EU, you're probably at work or school. So this is unfortunate. This is a catch-up match for you guys. This will be Seoul Dynasty taking on the San Francisco Shock. So this is first in NA and second in APAC. Seoul Dynasty had a massive run in the playoffs, only losing to Shanghai very narrowly, and that's because Shanghai adapted in-game to them, whereas teams like NYXL and the rest really couldn't handle Seoul Dynasty. They were way too good for them. The Gesture Roadhog in this patch, which we will still be on the same patch, 1.51. And so, meta-wise, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. So it's going to be incredibly interesting to see how teams have adapted with this time to prep for this meta now. Because there wasn't too much of a gap between the end of the season and then the playoffs, and now we're getting this extra gap where they've had loads of time to really analyze these enemy teams and say, right, this is what they're running, this is what we can take them down with. So they should come in with some very advanced plans. And this is what worries me about Seoul Dynasty. They may get caught out in this Roadhog meta, and they may have to switch to something else, and I think that is where San Francisco Shock could really take hold of this match. And so it becomes very difficult to... I mean, Seoul will come into this as the underdogs. They will come into this entire competition as the underdogs. Let's be honest, in the overall season they were placed 11th. They're not even in the top half of the league, whereas Philly, San Francisco and Shanghai are a top 3. And Seoul have definitely got the capability to run through this playoffs and win it. I don't doubt that. But it is a question of if they get countered, have they got enough in the back pocket to catch the opponent off guard again? And that is what worries me. And that is what caught out the Washington Justice against the Philadelphia Fusion when they basically got outplayed and they couldn't cope with it. But that is our first match. Then moving to 2 p.m. BST, so this is, 9 a.m.? Something like that in North America, which is rough again. You guys are going to miss it. This, if you're coming back from school, you may just catch the end of it, depending on how long the series is. But this is an absolute barnstormer. This is Philadelphia Fusion taking on the Shanghai Dragons. This, in my opinion, is the battle of the two best dive teams this season. I think these are the two teams that have executed dive the best out of the league's teams. Two teams with incredibly high skill ceilings. Philadelphia Fusion, we've got the likes of Carpe, people like that. Shanghai Dragons, Harbor are MVP for this year. Flatter, great tank players in Fearless and Void. And this is, again, going to be a real close one, I think. I think this is possibly going to be closer than Seoul San Francisco. And it is a case of in-game adaptation, maybe, and who can catch the enemy team off guard. Shanghai, they tend to sometimes stick in their ways and just try and outplay. And in APAC that worked. In this tournament, I don't think that's going to work. Against Seoul, it didn't work in the playoffs, and they ended up having to switch to the Roadhog, which they ended up outplaying Seoul on. And it's what got them the #1 seed here, and this game against Philly Fusion. I don't think there's an easy game to pick from NA for either Seoul or Shanghai. It's not, oh, we would rather to go up against this team. I don't think that's really an option. These two teams from NA are fantastic, and it's going to be tough for the Dragons. And I said in their preview video that I worry about their backline, about their supports, because I think they can be sometimes a little bit inconsistent. Whereas when you look at the Philadelphia Fusion, they have great support. They have Funny Astra and they have Alarm, which is most likely what they're going to play. We haven't seen much Boombox. So when we see that support line, we're like, damn, dude. So I think that is going to be perhaps an area where Philadelphia Fusion can come out on top. I think the tanks are fairly evenly matched, if not slightly in the favour of the Shanghai Dragons. And then it depends on... This could heavily depend on tactics and out-metering people. And this is something I worry slightly about Fusion. I think their tactics and their change in the way they play can be a little bit slow. Shanghai, very good at adapting. San Francisco, also very good at adapting. So that's what worries me when it comes to Philadelphia Fusion. I find it really tough to pick a winner here. Really, really tough. If I was to go with anything, I would go with Shanghai. And I still think this is still a great draw for Philadelphia, even if they lose this match, because they'll have the experience of going up against Shanghai, providing they can stay in the competition until later rounds. So I still think it's a great opportunity for the Philadelphia Fusion. But then we move on to the next day. So this is Friday, and this is when we will see at 10 a.m. BST the losers bracket round 1. So this is, 5 a.m. in NA in some places? Oof, that's rough. This is definitely a miss for the EUers who are at work and school. It's not a miss if you're willing to get up pretty early in NA. But this is a rough one. It's going to be, obviously, the losers of the first two games. And, if I predicted, who did I predict for Seoul, San Francisco? If I'm going to predict anyone for that, I'm going to predict San Francisco, because I think they might outsmart Seoul. So that would mean it would be Seoul, Philadelphia. And I think Philadelphia win that. I think Philadelphia win a Philadelphia-Seoul match, simply because of the way that Philadelphia are great at dive, but also they completely outplayed the Washington Justice in a meta that Seoul have been very good in. Now, Seoul will be better than the Justice in that meta, but I think Philadelphia should pull through. So, yeah, that's the way I see that. Then 12 p.m. on that day, we are going to see the winners bracket final. So I've predicted this as being San Francisco taking on Shanghai Dragons, which again will be a hell of a match. But I think Shanghai Dragons versus San Francisco Shock, I think this is an easier prospect for Shanghai than going up against Philadelphia. So I think Shanghai will be able to outsmart San Francisco better. So I think this is a winnable game for Shanghai, which would mean I'm putting Shanghai through to the grand finals as a run through the winners bracket. Then after this, at 2 p.m. on that day, so, take 5 hours off or whatever if you're NA, we had the losers bracket final, which I have predicted as the San Francisco Shock taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. So, That would be incredible. Our 2 seeds from NA. We saw this in the playoffs in NA. This in the playoffs of NA was a 3-1 for the San Francisco Shock. Do I think that will happen again? I believe in the redemption arc for Philadelphia Fusion. They have struggled. It's been impossible for them to beat the San Francisco Shock this season. I believe that is the point when they do it. I think it'll be an incredibly close match, but a 3-2 for the Philadelphia Fusion is not off the cards. It's also not off the cards for the San Francisco Shock to make it either, to try and defend their title against the Shanghai Dragons. But I will go for the Philadelphia Fusion. This sets us up for Saturday, October the 10th, 2 PM BST, which is, let me think, 9 AM in NA, I believe, and whatever it is elsewhere, our grand final, which will be the first to 4 maps. And I am predicting it to be the Shanghai Dragons taking on the Philadelphia Fusion, a rematch of the semi-finals match. And this is where that experience going up against the Shanghai Dragons in that semi-finals match could be invaluable for the Philadelphia Fusion. Invaluable. And so, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say Philadelphia Fusion win it. And this would be quite the story for Philadelphia Fusion. I've also got a sneaky feeling, though, that there could be a bracket that completely different to this, where Seoul Dynasty end up winning it as a story of Lunatic High coming back to Korea. That seems like a possibility to me as well. So, any of these teams could win it. I'm not ruling any of them out, because they're all really good. It depends how they adapt. It depends how they've prepared for these teams, which they've had plenty of time to do. And it will be incredibly interesting. I know the times are rough for some of us in EU and some of you in North America. It is taking place in Korea. It is the hazard with having a World League. Some teams sometimes just are not good. Look, NYXL fans this season, this has been their issue all season, dude. So it's weird that these games are on a Thursday and a Friday. Why is the grand final not on on the Sunday? And then you could have had the big batch of the fixtures that we went through on the Friday on the Saturday, and then just had the Friday fixtures. So yeah, it is a bit rough, but it is what it is, and we'll make our way through it. But I am going to leave it here for this one. We're going to see some great Overwatch this weekend, and I can't wait. Ready to crown some champions for 2020. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.